The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I am doing wonderful tonight. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight we have a fun show. We are going to be talking about an absolute icon. The beautiful, the vivacious, the sex symbol of all sex symbols, Marilyn Monroe. And the reason that we're going to be talking about Marilyn, because you might be saying right now, why the hell are you talking about this, dude? This is like from the 60s, man. This is a long time ago. What could you possibly have to say new about Marilyn Monroe? Well, there's some new evidence that's come out in some declassified documents. And there's going to be a show that's going to be happening about those documents with an entirely new theory about Marilyn Monroe's death, what happened, and why it happened, and who did it. So it's going to be really an interesting episode, I think. So without further ado, we're going to get to the article. Nigel, if you will, my man, will you please read the article for me?
Hello everyone. My name is Nigel. And I will be your AI narrator. Today's article comes from Gaia.com. The headline is, "Was Marilyn Monroe killed to prevent UFO disclosure?" It was published August 19, 2021, when famous model and film icon Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home in 1962. The official autopsy reports labeled her death a barbiturate overdose, and likely the result of suicide. While Monroe had exhibited signs of depression and used prescription sedatives for years, her death came at the peak of her career, and was a shock to millions. And rightfully so, as Monroe was closely connected to a number of powerful men, namely President John F. Kennedy. A number of conspiracies abound around her death, including the possibility that she was murdered by either the CIA or the mob out of spite of President Kennedy. Others thought that then Attorney General Robert Kennedy had her killed because she had incriminating evidence against the family that could have ruined their political careers and led to legal woes. But there's another theory behind her untimely death that stands out above the rest. One that involves disclosure, based on a top-secret, classified document taken from a vault at the NSA. Dr. Stephen Greer says he has reason to believe Monroe was killed because she was going to tell the world about the spacecraft recovered in New Mexico. According to Dr. Greer, an insider he was connected to mailed him a copy of this document signed by James Jesus Angleton, the chief of counterintelligence for the CIA, from 1954 to 1975. The document describes a wiretap placed on Monroe and details her discussion with a friend in New York, in which she allegedly said she was going to hold a press conference to disclose what President Kennedy had told her about objects from outer space recovered from New Mexico in the 1940s. Dr. Greer said he even spoke to one of Monroe's close friends in the film industry, actor and singer Burl Ives, who said the cause of her death wasn't suicide, but that he believed this could have been a likely scenario. But what exactly did President Kennedy tell Monroe, and would the world have believed her if she went public? Could Kennedy's assassination years later also have had something to do with his desire to disclose this information to the public? More details to this bizarre story and the layers of government secrecy are revealed in a new 10-part special disclosure with Dr. Stephen Greer. And that is the end of the article.
All right, thank you, Nigel. That was actually a very interesting article, and something is definitely with this, okay? As they said in the article, there was a wiretap placed on Marilyn Monroe's phone. And that wiretap captured a conversation between her and a friend of hers in New York City, where she was talking about President Kennedy and the fact that he kind of said a lot more than he should have said about Roswell. Essentially, he told her everything. He told her all about the crash at Roswell, all about the alien bodies that were recovered, and he told her that all of that was true, and that we have the bodies, that aliens exist, all this, right? So, a little background on it. At this time period where Marilyn makes this statement to her friend, Kennedy is already done with her, okay? He's been there, he's done that, and he's kind of given her the cold shoulder at this point. And Marilyn is a woman scorned. She does not want it to be over. She imagines herself in the White House. She thinks somehow that Kennedy is going to leave Jackie and shack up with her instead. Now, that might sound crazy to you, but that is her mindset at this time. And that comes from several people that she knew and conversations that were had and a lot of interviews throughout the years of people that knew Marilyn, and that's what she was thinking. Everybody remembers the famous song when she did the Happy Birthday, Mr. President, for Kennedy's birthday. This time period is when she's trying to get President Kennedy to pay attention to her again, because he already hooked up and he's already moved on. Because one thing about President Kennedy, he had a lot of women. They were bringing those women in and out of the White House on a daily basis, and it was insane. So he's already done, and she's trying to get him back and get him to notice her. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I think that has a lot to do with what ultimately ended up happening to Marilyn. Because I think her mindset at this point was kind of like, either he's going to pay attention to me, or I'm going to make sure he pays attention to me. So I think a lot of this has to do with, I don't really want to say revenge, but in a way revenge, right? She is upset because she feels slighted by President Kennedy. She thought they were going to really have something concrete, and they weren't. But she still feels that way and thinks that it can happen. So she is upset, and she wants him to pay attention. And if he doesn't, she's going to air out all the dirty laundry. Okay, we have reports from before this that say that Marilyn was going to go to the press about their relationship. If Kennedy wouldn't be with her, she was going to tell everybody about what they did. That would have caused serious harm to not only Kennedy's marriage, obviously, but his presidency and the family name. So they couldn't have that. So that is one potential reason why a lot of people think that what happened to Marilyn happened to Marilyn. This new thing is that she was going to talk about the aliens at Roswell that Kennedy told her about, and she was going to call a press conference. Now, we know that is true because it is in the documents that were declassified. It comes straight from a wiretap. She had that conversation with a friend of hers in New York City. So we know that is true and that she said that. Now, if she actually would have done it or not, that's a whole different story. Honestly, in my opinion, I wouldn't put it past her, because I don't think she's in her right frame of mind anymore. I think that she is in love. I think she is obsessed with President Kennedy. And I think that at this point, she's insulted. I mean, think about this. You have Marilyn Monroe, who was by far the hottest woman in that time period. I mean, there's just no comparison. Now, whether you're into Marilyn or not doesn't matter. The fact is that as far as society was concerned, she was the ultimate sex symbol of the time. So she could essentially have damn near any man she wanted. But the one man that she really wanted didn't want her because he's already done it. So he doesn't want to do it again. He's done with it because he loves Jackie. Jackie's his woman. Marilyn was just a fun time. And I don't think that she could really come to grips with that. So she was going to spill the beans. She was going to do anything she could do to make him look bad and to make him pay for the insult. I think that has a lot to do with this. And I think whether it was the Roswell thing that they were trying to cover up, or whether it was the fact that she was going to talk about the relationship, or any of those other things, it all boils down to the same thing, which is she was a loose cannon. She was somebody they could not control, and they could not reliably predict what she was going to do. And that was a huge problem as far as the Kennedys were concerned. Now, a couple things about the crime scene, so to speak. Her supposed suicide that never made any sense. First of all, there was no suicide note. Okay, if she was going to kill herself, somebody as dramatic as Marilyn Monroe, I think would have left a detailed note explaining why she was doing what she was doing and making a big production out of it. There was no note. Her autopsy report claimed that the amount that she had in her system would have been just a ton of different pills, right? But when they did the autopsy, there was not only no pills found in her stomach, but there was no trace of pills at all in her system. There was a high level of the barbiturate, but there wasn't any pills. So what that means is that it had to come as an injection, right? That's what they think that happened to her, was that somebody injected her, or she injected herself with a fatal dose. But the problem is the pills weren't there, so it had to be that. And there was also a mysterious bruise that they found on her lower body that they never could explain where it came from. And a lot of people think that that was the injection site, is where they gave the injection and it bruised up around it. You also have the fact that Marilyn Monroe's housekeeper was seen washing Monroe's bed sheets in the middle of the night. The night that she was found, that she supposedly committed suicide, in the middle of the night, her housekeeper was washing the bed sheets. This was happening as the police were arriving at her bungalow. And that's always been super suspicious. Why would that be taking place? The deputy coroner, who actually signed the death certificate, later said that he did so under duress. So somebody forced him to sign off on a death certificate that was not accurate, is what he's saying. So you had a lot of people that were saying, wait a minute, this just does not add up. You know, a lot of this stuff has, to this day, never been explained. It is true that she took barbiturates and sleeping pills pretty regularly. Now, if you have ever been on a medication like that, or if you know somebody who has either been on that kind of medication or is an addict, period, with any drug, then you know that the thing about addicts is they have incredibly high tolerance levels. So what would kill a normal person sometimes don't even get them high. So what ends up happening is they end up taking more and more and more in order to still get that same feeling that they had in the beginning. So if Marilyn was a pill popper, right? If she took barbiturates in pill form, and that was her way of doing it, the way that she took her drugs was by pills, Why on the night of her suicide did she decide to inject herself instead, when there's no record of her ever injecting herself before? Now, she had a pill bottle for the barbiturates that ended up killing her, and it was empty. They found it there at the bedside, empty. So they think that she took all the pills. But as I said, no pills in her stomach, not even a trace of them. Now you might say, well, maybe they just, she took them and they digested. Well, according to the medical examiners, the amount that she had in her system, it would have killed her in a minute. From the time it was ingested or injected, a minute later she'd have been dead, is what they're saying, from that level that she had. So that is not enough time for the pills to digest out of her stomach and be no trace of them anymore. They would still be there when they did the autopsy and the tox screen and everything. They'd be able to prove, look, she took all these pills, here they are in her stomach. But that's not the case. So there's always been a lot of things that don't add up, that make you think something fishy is going on. And then on top of that, you add the fact that she's talking about going public about the affair with Kennedy. And a lot of people say she had an affair with Kennedy's brother, Robert Kennedy, as well, the Attorney General. That is a big point here, too, that everybody says happened. So you could either have Robert Kennedy or you could have John Kennedy. Both were supposedly involved with her in a romantic way. We know for a fact that President Kennedy was. Whether Robert was or not is open to speculation. There are people that will absolutely die on that hill. They'll say 100% she had an affair with Robert Kennedy as well to try to get back with Jack, but there is no concrete evidence. There is evidence that points to that, but there's nothing, to my knowledge, that is irrefutable like there is with President Kennedy. So you have her talking about going public, but now we add on to that this whole element of Roswell and top secret information. That takes it out of just the realm of embarrassing the Kennedys. That takes it into the realm of making public top secret and classified information that certain parts of the government want very much to keep secret. Because remember, this is the 1960s. This is not the 80s, 90s, or the 2000s. Nowadays, everybody kind of knows that Roswell happened and it's accepted. It's not something that is a big shock. When we talk about UFOs, or we talk about the Roswell incident, or we talk about the dozens of other alien sightings or UFO sightings that are either on film or whatever. But back then, it was a much bigger deal, because back then the government was still actively denying that these things even existed, much less that they actually recovered bodies at Roswell. So they had a vested interest in keeping her quiet about that. And also there is a history of them destroying people that have tried to be whistleblowers when it comes to aliens and alien technology. They will destroy their names, and in some cases those people either commit suicide or they have accidents. It's pretty common, actually, when you're dealing with classified stuff. It seems to happen quite a bit. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that if Maryland is on a wiretap talking to somebody saying she's going to hold a press conference and tell the entire world that President Kennedy told her that Roswell was real, the aliens were real, they recovered the bodies, they have the ships, we've been in contact with aliens, they absolutely exist. If she was going to come out and say that publicly, and say that the President of the United States told her that while they were in bed together because they were having an affair, that would have caused an uproar like you would not believe. Because nowadays we know that Kennedy was a dog. We know that that dude was woman crazy and he was always bringing women in and out of the White House on a daily basis. We know that. Back then, they did not know that. The general public was shielded from that information because the press hid it from them. Because they liked Kennedy. They didn't want the image of Camelot to be ruined. They didn't want the American people to see the truth about John F. Kennedy, as far as his womanizing and all that kind of stuff. Back in that time period, there was a lot of that went on. FDR was essentially a cripple from polio. His legs didn't work. He was in a wheelchair. And when he would stand to give speeches, he had these metal braces that he would get into that would allow him to stand for a certain amount of time. And the press did not say a word about it until long after his death. So during the time when he was president, most people didn't even know that he was crippled. They thought that his legs worked just fine. The press hid stuff like that back in that time period from the public. Nowadays, it would be on every channel and they would be talking about it all day, all night. Different world back then. So the idea of Marilyn coming out and giving a press conference where she just blows up everything and just releases all this information, tells the public about all this stuff, whether they can discredit her or not, which they would absolutely try to discredit her. They would try to ruin her name and make her sound crazy and all this stuff. But regardless of whether they are successful in doing that, just the fact that she came out and gave that kind of statement, being as big of a star as she was, it would have caused problems. And there would have been a lot of people that would have been like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, they'd have started putting two and two together and it would have been a problem. So the idea that maybe the government took her out because of that, the CIA or somebody like that, I can absolutely believe that that could be the case. I'm not saying it is the case because I have no idea. I wasn't there and I don't know. But it seems to make a lot of sense to me. It fits that it could be possible. And as I said, we know for a fact that she had that conversation. We know for a fact that she threatened to go public with the information about Roswell. We also know for a fact that she threatened to go public about the relationship she was having with President Kennedy. You put those two things together, you have a person that is a huge, huge star, that the majority of the country either adores her or at the very least they know who she is. She's a household name. She's going to come out and lay out all this stuff. I think that is a huge threat. And I think that's not only a threat to the Kennedys, but it's also a threat to a lot of three-letter agencies that are and are not known by the general public. And I think that when you do a risk assessment on Marilyn Monroe, you see that this woman is not going to be controlled. She's not going to do what she's told. Point blank. She's not going to. She is a star, and quite frankly, she's kind of a badass. She's going to do whatever she wants to do, and you're not going to tell her what to do. And then you add on top of that the fact that she's obsessed with President Kennedy and head over heels for the dude. You got a recipe for absolute disaster there. There's no way to control her. There's no way to predict what she's actually going to do and how much damage she's going to cause. Because if you've ever been in a relationship like that, you know that when a woman reaches that point, when that type of woman reaches that point, a woman that is spirited and feisty and just doesn't give a damn and is pushed to the point where she no longer is thinking rationally and she's going to do anything in her power to burn the whole damn thing down if she can't have what she wants. When a woman gets to that point, there is no stopping it. There's no controlling it. All you can try to do is duck and cover and try to avoid as much of the damage as you can. So any risk assessment done would have said, hey, this is a huge issue and something's got to be done. I'm sure that there were attempts to talk to her about it. I'm sure somebody sat down with her and said, hey, look, man, you can't do this. you got to chill because you're dealing with some very dangerous people. I'm sure that probably happened, but I'm also just as sure that Marilyn didn't give a damn. And she was going to do what she was going to do. So I think what happened is it probably reached a point to where whoever did greenlight that thing said, look, there's no other option here, man. We got to get rid of this chick. She's bad news, and we got to make it look like an accident or that she did it herself or something, because she's a huge star. But we just can't deal with this, man. She's out of control. I think that's probably what happened. And I don't believe for even a second that she killed herself. I think that's ridiculous because the physical evidence doesn't match it. She was at the highest point in her career at that time. She was excited about projects that were coming up. She had hope for the future. I don't think that she was in a mental state to do that to herself. And I think with the threat that she represented to the country and to a lot of very powerful people, I think that's what caused that to happen to her. I think that it was done to her. I think that she did not commit suicide. She was murdered. And that's my opinion on it. When we put this on YouTube, let me know what you guys think. It'll be really interesting to find out because there's a lot of different thoughts on this. There's a lot of theories about what happened, and a lot of people feel very, very strongly. For full disclosure, I'll tell you, I was a fan of Marilyn Monroe. I've seen a lot of her movies. I think she was amazing. A lot of people think she's this ditzy, dumb blonde because that's the character that she played. But the truth of the matter is she was a very shrewd and smart business lady. And she created a character of Marilyn Monroe that was this ditzy sex symbol blonde. And she found a way to market that and to become hugely successful because of it. And she was very, very bright, I think, in real life. So that's my opinion on it. Let me know what you guys think. And I'm going to throw over to Old Boy, and I'd like to get his opinion on what he thinks happened about the article and about just anything he wants to talk about as far as this is concerned. So, Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. So, my opinion on this whole thing is I think it's all the above. I think she got mad because he quit talking to her. I think that there was other things she was going to come out saying that she was having an affair with him on top of that. I just think it was all above. I think she had other secrets that we don't know about either. I don't think it was just that. I think it's all the above. That's just my opinion. I was never the biggest fan of Marilyn Monroe. She was beautiful, one of the most beautiful women in the world at that time that people thought most loved woman. She acted ditzy and dumb, but she really was a very smart person. A lot of people have this thing. If she was so stupid, she wouldn't have been rich. Man, it wasn't just because she had a, the gorgeous body like people think. That helped. But she was very smart by business-wise and street smart. That's a whole different thing. There's a street smart and book smart. And she was very street smart. But the problem is she fell in love with Kennedy. And I think the Robert Kennedy thing, and this is just my opinion, I think she was trying to get him mad and it didn't work. If it happened, I don't know if it 100%, well, we all know it did. But I don't know about Robert, but I think if she was doing something with him that it was for revenge to try to make Kennedy jealous, to try to get mad, and maybe he did. I think that I don't think he was necessarily over her. I think she got too wanted him to leave, and he wasn't going to leave his wife. But I hate to say it, and I'm not trying to bring this up, but most men who cheat are not going to leave their wife. They're happy with their wife. It's just, and I'm saying this with most people, not just men, women too. They're just not getting something, or it's just something different that they're missing. Maybe it's love, money, maybe it's just affection or other things I can't talk about because we're still a PG show. But they're never going to really truly leave their wife. And he probably told her he was going to do that, to hook up with her. We'll just go that way. And he got done with it and he didn't want to deal with her anymore. And a lot of women get scorned. And he kind of caused it, and look what happened. And I think that she was threatening to bring out Roswell and threaten to say he had an affair, because I think that it would have caused, that would be the only way to cause him to get a divorce. That was her revenge. You're going to do that to me, so I'm going to get back at you and destroy your presidency. Your wife's going to leave you, everybody's in it, and you're going to have to resign. That would have hurt him more than anything. So I think that's a very possibility. I don't think that's all of it, though, because we've talked about it. I think there's other things. I think she was going to tell him on everything. Anything he told her, I think he did like her, but then she got, like you said, she got obsessed, and that happens. JFK was a very loved man and very smart. Wasn't an ugly guy. Very educated. Could talk. One of the best presidents of all time, talking wise. He was a great president altogether. But very, very, a lot of women are attracted to smart. Very smart man. And sometimes these men get these women so crazy. And I think that's what happened. And crazy it sounds, looks, people got to realize, looks, everybody thinks it's all about looks or money. It's not. If you know how to tell somebody, you know how to talk to them, you know about them, you can read them, you can get them to love you. Listen, I'm not the best looking guy in the world, but I will tell you this. I've never had problems dating anybody, getting them. I wasn't the best looking guy. I was heavy set, but I have an attitude. I have confidence in myself. And I never think I can't get something. If I want it, I get it. And that's with everything. I was told all my life I was never going to be anything. Well, funny, I am something. And people like that who used to doubt me love me now, or try to ask me for stuff. And I'm not trying to say that it's in everybody, but a lot of people doubted me in my life. And I don't want to bring that up but I know where this is coming. And I've done things I didn't like. And I did it to some women, so I know where this is coming at. So that's where it's becoming similar. And I paid for it. I've had girls get me back, go and snitch to my girlfriend at the time. This is a long time I've changed, guys. And get me in trouble, or try to get me in trouble at work and stuff like that. And it happens. I'm just showing you examples. Marilyn Monroe got the word sprung, and fell in love with JFK. And it wasn't going to change. There's women that don't care you're married, or men, both, and will have relationships on the side with people for years, 15, 20 years. And they don't care. They know your situation. You've seen it in movies. They just don't care. They like being with that person, even if they're in a relationship with somebody. And that happens a lot. So coming from a lot of people follow me on Facebook, okay? I live a different lifestyle than James does. I have different beliefs than James does. And I know where this is, how that works. But it's not for everyone. And do you realize some people who mess with people when you're married, and if you're married and you're not faithful, he kind of deserved it. Of course, you're going to get you think you're just going to get away with what you did and not, the consequences. Women don't think the same. They have emotions a lot of men don't have. And that's the way they get back at you. And men do it too. Don't get me wrong. There's men that do it too. Trust me. They get back at women. So it isn't just women. It's just that some people get so in love with somebody, though, they don't care anymore. They're willing to throw it all online. If it causes their life to get destroyed, no one's going to have you except me. And if I can't have you, no one's going to have you. And this is for anything, any relationship, women or men. I've seen it both sides. Men are just more, how would you say, there's a word for it. God, I can't think of it right now. Men do it in a different way. They do it more of a mind thing. They kind of put you down. Like, say you win something or you do something good in your life, they'll always say something to make you feel like it still wasn't good enough. I forget what the word is. James, you know what that is? Narcissism. Narcissist. That's it. That's where men are very narcissistic that play people's heads, like girls or even if you're a man. And women tend to, they could do the same thing, but they get mad in a different way, like Marilyn Monroe did. I'm going to tell the world, and you're going to pay for it. And you're going to, trust me. I paid for it too. I think James has. We all have. It's not good to piss off a woman, and you deserve it. You most of the time when you do that, you deserve it. I'm sorry, you kind of did, but you can't tell the world just because you're mad at one person stuff that most people don't need to know as aliens. And there's probably other things, probably about weapons and stuff. Some people probably wouldn't believe her, but still would have been out there, and you'd had your conspiracy theory people, and it would have been a big mess. We would have had scandals that he was sleeping with her, all kinds of stuff. And his brother, it would have caused a lot of people a lot of problems. Even if it was true or wasn't true, it would cause problems, especially this day and age if it happened. So, do I believe it? The alien thing. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I believe it could be some of it. I don't believe it's 100% of it. I believe there's more to it, like James was talking about earlier. But she wasn't a stupid person. People got to realize people play a different part, and I think people fall in love with these characters, like Elvis Presley, very smart, talented person, but people saw him on TV. He was smart, dude. The guy knew how to sell. My grandfather saw that, didn't like him. I'm going to tell you, he saw him on concert in the 70s. And he said that guy put on a show that you would never believe. The guy was a showman. He knew how to put a show on. There's people who are smart, and then there's people who are just brilliant on things, and people think they're stupid, and they're not. Einstein wasn't the best writer. But come to find out, some people who are very smart, like doctors, they write too fast. But what that means is their mind works too fast in writing on what they want to say. Or they just write too fast. They write like, he had a learning disability. He's the smartest person in the world at one time. So this thing of people are stupid, do you realize, like wrestling, people in this, they take these characters serious, but they're really just playing a character. They're not really these kind of people. But they live you turn into the character. That's what they say. Some people turn into characters and they never get at it. Like Heath Ledger, they said when he played the Joker, he went to a dark place and never came back. Kind of like the guy who played the Joker, Phoenix. They said he went in a dark place playing these characters. I know people who played in movies. The guy, my friend, now he's a born-again Christian, ate the chosen one. He doesn't go by that name. I'm not going to say anything else, but he played in a movie where you couldn't watch on, we couldn't even really talk about, but it changed him. And you end up turning into that character to a point. Just like Jim Carrey, everybody hates Jim Carrey, says, oh yeah, now he's starting to be himself, and people to realize he was just being a character, but that's not how he was. That's because he was playing a character in a movie, and he wanted you to think he was that certain way. It's brilliant. There are smart people than you think. Like Marilyn Monroe, she wanted to make you think she was a dumb blonde. She wasn't. She was very smart, very business-wise. And just like James says, I don't think she had any problems at that time. I think she just knew too much and was just too much going to be talked about. And back then you didn't. You couldn't talk about stuff like that. It was a different world. And you still really can't. But once you get it out, you can't stop the fire in this world. You can't that would have came out now. Oh man, it would have been a whole mess. Back then, it would have been a mess, but it would have been worse now because media's. You know how that goes, guys. We don't need to get into that. But yes, I do believe there's some truth to this story. I believe there's more to it, just like James was talking about earlier. People are going to say, well, I thought you guys do Paranormal. We do a lot of shows, and this is kind of some people are going to say conspiracy theory or a theory about, it's a mystery. Her death was a mystery. We really don't know what happened. They say there's 2 or 3 different stories. Did she kill herself? Did she overdose? Did she get murdered? We don't know. Like the Black Murder Moth, Delia, that's another one kind of like that. We don't know what happened with that. That would be one we need to do down the line. And like I said, I'm leading up to another story one day. We always do it. But that being said, I hope you guys tell us what you think in the comments, like he was saying. We want to know what you think, because I'm going to tell you something. We've been putting some shows out. People don't listen to the show. They'll listen to it for 10 seconds. They'll hear Nigel. Well, that's what I don't agree with it. We don't mean just because we put the show on there doesn't mean we're 100% agreeing with it. Please listen to the show before you say something. You know, you want to say whatever you want, that's fine, but at least listen to it. That's like me going, oh, I listened to 10 seconds of something. It's not real. And that's what happens. So we've seen that this couple weeks. But that's my opinion. There you go, James.
We have talked a lot tonight about the affairs and a lot of the stuff that took place between Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe. But I think even more damaging than the fact that he was having the affair was the fact that he told her stuff that he shouldn't have said. I think at the end of the day, that would have been the worst part of all of this, and would have done the worst damage to his presidency and his overall image of selling out state secrets, essentially, over pillow talk. I mean, that's a big thing. That's bad. I mean, this is classified information. This is tantamount to treason, depending on who you talk to. So this is not a small thing. And I think that is a lot more important than the affairs themselves. Now, I'm sure that if people follow me on Facebook and they've seen some of the things I've said in my personal life and everything like that, you would think that I'm not a big fan of Kennedy. But believe it or not, I actually liked John Kennedy. I thought that he was a good man. I mean, yes, he made some mistakes in his presidency, and anybody who is fair-minded will say that. That he made mistakes with the Bay of Pigs. He made mistakes with the Cuban Missile Crisis. There were mistakes that were made. But I think overall, there wasn't a moment that went by that President Kennedy was not trying to do his best for this country. I think that the man was a patriot. I think that he loved his country. And that's something that I can absolutely respect. And Kennedy wanted to do a lot of things that modern day Democrats or people on the left would absolutely not agree with. You know, if you really look at where he stood on things, he couldn't be a Democrat today. There's just no way. I mean, he was pro-tax cuts. He was anti-abortion. He was pro-America. He loved this country so much. He was a war hero. I mean, Kennedy was the man, you know. He did some things that I don't agree with, and I think you could say that about any president in history. But I will go on the record right now in front of the world on this radio show and say that I think that President John F. Kennedy was a good man. And I think that he was doing the best that he possibly could for this country. And I think that had his time not been cut so short, I think that potentially he could have done some great things for this nation because he was a good man. And I have no problem with President Kennedy whatsoever. Robert Kennedy is a little bit of a different issue. I think he was a good guy too, but I think he was a little too reckless. The way he went after the mob and all the stuff that he did was a lot more dangerous, let's put it that way, to the powers that be than his brother ever was. And I think that overall, they were both good men. And I think that if they would have had the chance, I think they could have done some great things for America. I just thought I'd put that out there because I don't want anybody to think that just because we were talking about this stuff tonight, that this was in any way a hit piece on President Kennedy, who I consider to be a good president and a great man. I know that might come as a shock to some people because I am definitely a conservative, but I got no problem with the guy. I mean, the things that he did in his personal life, I think in a way has no bearing on his presidency. With the exception of the pillow talk, that's a problem. If he's telling state secrets and classified information to women while he's in bed with them, that's an issue. That's a big, big problem. And I cannot condone that, and I definitely say that's a bad thing. If that is what happened. But we don't know for sure that that's what happened. All we know is that he told Marilyn about this stuff. We don't know how that happened. We don't know if she happened to be there with him when some of this stuff was discussed, and that's why she knows, or if he came right out and told her. I would think the way that government works is if there was going to be a conversation about classified matters, she would not be allowed to be still in the room. Because, see, people think that if you have a certain level, if you reach a certain level of clearance, that means you know everything, and that's not the way the government works at all. You could have Q level clearance, which is the highest level of security clearance you can have, which means you can know anything in the government if you have the need to know. And that is super important. That's what the general public and most people don't understand about classified materials. There could be something that's classified, and my security clearance could be higher than the level needed to know that information. But because I don't have a need to know that information, I'm still not in the loop. Okay? I would still be asked to leave the room when that information is presented, simply because I can't be read in because I don't have a need to know. If I don't have a need to know based on my job, then I'm not going to be given that information, even if my clearance is higher than what is required for that information. So, with that being said, if they were going to be discussing something like a Roswell or something like that, I guarantee you she would have been thrown out of the room. There's no way they would have allowed her to remain for those kind of conversations. So the only way it could have happened is if Kennedy was talking on the phone to somebody about it and she overheard the conversation that way, or if he just flat out told her about it, which is possible. And if that is what happened, once again, I think that's a horrible thing, and that should never be done, because things are classified for a reason. Now, whether you believe that reason is just or not, whether you believe that a lot of things are classified that should not be classified, we can definitely have that conversation. And I will agree with you on a lot of it, because a lot of things are classified just to CYA, let's put it that way. And anybody who's ever been in the military knows what that means. Cover your backside, essentially. A lot of things are classified because of that, because people in power are trying to cover their butts. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want the American people to know the stuff that they're doing. So they classify it. So that way nobody can know, except for people that have the need to know. And the only people that have the need to know that will be read in on those kind of programs are people that are complicit as well. They are actually involved with them in whatever that program is that they don't want the American people to know. So they're not a threat because they don't want it known either, because they're doing it too. So a lot of the classification stuff is kind of dirty, to be honest. But one thing I can tell you is the military and the government are very, very serious, especially the military, when it comes to classified materials. And there is no way that any briefing would have been done with her in the room. It's just not going to happen. I don't care if the president says let her stay. It's not going to happen. Let's put it that way. The president doesn't have the final say on a lot of things. People think they do, they really don't. You have a lot of people in the military and a lot of people in the intelligence agencies that are doing things that the president doesn't even know they're doing, because he doesn't have a need to know. That's how serious this gets. Okay? So I don't have any thought at all that she would have been sitting there while a conversation was taking place, unless it was on the phone and the other party did not know that she was there. So most likely Kennedy said something he wasn't supposed to say, as a way to impress her, probably, to get her into the sack. That makes sense to me. Is it true? I have no idea. I'm not claiming it's the truth. I'm saying it makes sense. We know that Kennedy was a man that was driven by appetites, by desires. He wanted women, and he wanted to appear to be strong and to be important and powerful to women. Because in his personal life, he had a lot of pain issues. He dealt with debilitating back injuries and a lot of really bad health problems that were covered up for a lot of years, to where he was sick a lot and he was in really, really bad pain a lot. So it makes sense that he wants to appear more powerful than he actually is, and he would kind of be the kind of person that would brag about things to impress people, is what I'm saying. At least that's my take on it. You might have a different take, and feel free in the comment section to let me know what those are. But with that being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy and get his final sum up and shout out, and then we will wrap up. Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It was something different. You guys, we kind of talked about different stuff, and it came out to conspiracy theories and stuff like that, whatever you want to think. Cool. At least you'll listen to the show and give you your opinions. That's all we asked. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I want to thank everybody on Parax Radio, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern on Sunday nights, technically Monday morning on Parax Radio, and 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern on Tuesday nights on Parax Radio, our best of shows. So if you guys want to listen to them, or you want to follow James Hershey on his YouTube page, we're starting to get big again. So check it out. He also has the paranormal news. He talks about, Nigel talks about 15 or 10 minutes worth of, usually that's what the average is, about something that we find all the time. He tries to put 1 or 2 shows a day on there. It's just a little, we can't do it all in one show, guys. And eventually, if we did more than 1 show a week, we could do all these little things we're finding. But there's so much about paranormal and cryptozoology and mysteries and aliens, all kinds of stuff. This show will be going forever. Just like Art Bell. The great, rest in peace, Art Bell. Great guy. Always loved his show, and that's why we're doing this stuff, is we used to listen to his stuff. But you guys want to subscribe, follow James Hershey on YouTube. If you guys want any merchandise, he'll tell you where to go. Shirts, all kinds of stuff, COVID masks, Apple phone cases. I think there's blankets and all kinds of cool stuff, but he'll let you know. So I hope you guys all have a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you and have a great night. Blessed be.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. You've got every episode of Staring. You've got every episode of Paranormal News. And I'm coming up on almost 200 episodes of Paranormal News that I've done on the channel. That's super cool. In Paranormal News, we do all kinds of different subject matter. It is tons of different paranormal and scientific and weird news. Basically what it is Nigel does the article. I give him some notes on each article. I read it and I give my opinion, and he will read the article and state something, and then that's pretty much it. The whole point is to try to get all of that information out to you guys so that you can kind of keep up with everything that's going on, because if you want to know about politics, you can turn on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or Newsmax or a bunch of different other news channels. There's a bunch of it out there that you can know about what's going on in the world and the news and everything. But there's really no place to go that you can get all of the paranormal news that's going on. And there's a lot of cool stuff that comes out every day. Different scientific articles about really crazy things that are happening and that they're finding. Different stuff about Bigfoot sightings and Dogman sightings and ghost haunts and all kinds of stuff. These articles get written almost every day. And there's a lot of information out there, but if you don't know where to go to get it all, you miss a whole bunch. So Paranormal News is just a way to get all of that information that I can on the channel so that all of you guys can see it and be informed. And then we do Staring once a week, where we cover one article subject and we kind of go into great detail on it. And at some point we might take one of the Paranormal News articles and do a Staring show about it as well, depending on how interesting it is and all that kind of stuff. So that is what the Paranormal News is. I hope that you guys check it out. It's really, really cool show. Down in the comment section of the YouTube video will be the link to the merchandise store. They changed the address, so now it's all complicated. So if you want merch, look in the description box, and in there will be the link to the store. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you for hanging out with us again this week. I hope that you enjoyed the show, and go to the channel and subscribe and enjoy the content, man. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos. I've got over 200 episodes of Staring on the channel. There's almost 200 episodes of Paranormal News on the channel. We have 20 or 30 episodes of Tales from the Abyss on the channel, which is like the ghost hunting kind of show that we did. That's there. As we do new things, we put it up. So there's a ton of really good stuff on the channel for you to watch. So please go there, subscribe, and just enjoy it. It's 100% free. With that being said, thank you guys. We love you. And until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.